Salut tout le monde, Richard Nutzel Fantasy. I'm bringing you guys an old school album review, and today we're going to be looking into this album's 20th anniversary, and it's from one of my favorite bands. It's in technical death metal, progressive metal, or whatever. Today, as you can see below the title, we're going to be talking about Terra Incognita by Gojira, the band's debut full-length album released on March 19th, 2001 through Listenable Records. Now, for those of you who don't know who Gojira are, they're a metal band based out of France, and they formed in 1996. So let's give a little bit of a back history before we go into this album. The band formed in 96 by the Duplantier brothers, Joe, who is their lead vocalist and guitarist, and Mario, their drummer. And they decided to form a technical melodic death metal band, and then they recruited Christian Andrew, their current guitar player, and then they got in their first bassist, which is Alexander Cornelian, and who was actually a friend of Andrew, and then they of course were called Godzilla, based out of the film, obviously. And then of course they played around locally in France. Then in '98 they got a big bassist change, and then they got Jean-Michel Laberry, and they pretty much had that same lineup for a little over 20 something years now. Then it was around 2001 they've apparently changed their name to Gojira, which is actually French for Godzilla, because for legal problems. And then of course they got signed, and then in 2001 we get their debut full-length album from Terra Incognita. And really this showcases really what the band has done, because with later albums Gojira has definitely evolved in their sound. They became a lot more atmospheric, a little bit more melodic, but this one has a lot just insane, just technical, just really just showcases what the band could do, and just has a lot of different elements of progressive and technical and everything. And just one thing to know about is just the vocals. Joe Duplantier's vocals are just really insane, just in your face, just gutturals, and just the riffs that he comes up with is great. And same thing with the lead playing from Christian. The bass I kind of wish was a little bit audible from Jean-Michel. And drumming wise, Mario Duplantier is one of the best metal drummers that are still going strong today. So without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now, starting things off is Clone. Now this pretty much showcases the band's love for tapping rhythms, and something that they continue to this day. And then the rest of the track has a big moshy thrash parts, which rolling double bass, and not much in the way of the hook. And then we move on to Lizard Skin, which is kind of similar to Clone in nature, but is otherwise, I don't know, very decently memorable. Then we move on to Satan is a Lawyer. Now, which the song itself is the title is kind of silly, but this song will just kick you right in the ass. It starts off with a clean guitar interlude with some spoken lyrics before just crushing you with a great groovy breakdown riff, and then just back into the clean riff, and then the song picks up back 3 minutes in. Moving on to track 4, which is called 4. 4 was made by Joe and Mario as a birthday present for their mother on their 50th birthday. It was never intended to be released at all. And there's the phone call in the beginning of the song is actually their brother's uncle, who left a voicemail greeting his sister, which is kind of weird. But this song is a very fantastic and very epic instrumental track, just composed of 1 2-minute long a melodic bass solo. And this is pretty much one of the moments where you can actually hear the bass, which is pretty great. Moving on to Blow Me Away Universe. I kind of it's you, but universe. I just kind of like it, like that little pun. But anyway, this song kind of opens up with a very unique sounding riff layered with some addictive drum rhythms and some great drum fills. And the intro just really just gets me invested early, as it sounds so different from what we've heard so far. And Joe's vocals are brutal and have a lot of energy in its delivery. And this song also includes one of the best breakdowns from this entire album, thanks to its catchy and ferocious guitars riffs. And the most impressive part about this whole song is just Mario's ability on the drums. And the man is a machine, and it gives another impressive performance on this track, and I love this track quite a bit. Then we move on to 5,988 trillions de tones, which is just a little minute and a half long interlude with sort of Latin sounding harp percussion. Then we move on to Deliverance. Now this is pretty much one of the heaviest tracks on the album. It opens up with some pounding drums and just really great brutal guitar riff, and Joe's vocal delivery is something to behold on this track, thanks to just like the rawness and just the brutality of his delivery. And this track has like so many tempo changes from what I heard. It's just a straightforward death metal track, and the really most memorable thing about this song is just the atmosphere that is set up between like the transitions of the song, and the combination of the fantastic vocals, the brutally heavy riffs, and the tempo changes makes this one of the best highlights on here. Moving on to Space Time. Now this kind of reminds me of like Gojira's later works more than the tracks up to this point, and it opens up with the signature Gojira guitar riff that the band would later utilize heavily on other albums. And Joe's vocals during the verses of the track are full of emotion and sound as if he's crying out to the listener. And the breakdown here features like a sound that is more similar to, like I mentioned before, their later work, just thanks to like the atmospheric elements that allows it to like stand out more, and very progressive compared to like all the other tracks. And this is a great song from beginning to end. On the Bota, now it has like some siren-like guitar harmonies on top of like beeping, thundering bass lines, just very creepy sounding, and it has like robotic sounding spoken word whispers. It's just a really dark song. Moving on to Ryze. Now this begins with a huge stomping riff, but has a breakneck tempo change. It just kicks right in. It just rocks the song with some blistering death grind territory with like growls, ferocious riffing, and ridiculous drum fills. And the tune eventually slows back down again, though, with some really strong bass lines. And after that, it just wraps up totally unexpected with a great melodic ending. Fire is Everything. Now it offsets like blistering machine gun riffing and bludgeoning just rhythms and just a very doomy like breakdown. Downs here. Love. Now this kind of like picks up from the song Fire Liftoff, which begins like an eerily, slowly and quiet intro, but then Gojira's painted like mammoth like riffs just come steamrolling in. It just has some also another great bass lines. We move on to 1990 Quadrillions de Tones, which is another great experimental track. It is in fact, which is actually just played up straight from like a doom metal track. It's heavily brooding riffs, and some twin guitar harmonies are really underpinned with some ominous bass lines and some nightmarish backup vocals to just top it all off. That's just it for the regular album, but of course I have like a special edition which actually has a bonus track called In the Forest. Now the beginning of this song is very atmospheric, and it leads into intense like groove metal goodness with some intense guitar riffs and some thundering drumming. And the best part of this song is it definitely has like the progressive approach thanks to the complex layers and ambient guitar sounds. And this track has like 3 minutes of silence around the 5-minute mark, and it has a instrumental track, which is a hidden track on the album called Terra Inc., which is a pretty good song. It's I don't know, it's a great progressive of kind of like, I don't know, a great outro, which is like serves as like the last bit of the music from this album, and it has like a great progressive epic, and it just closes everything on a high note. So overall, Terra Incognita by Gojira is a great debut, a great way to start off this career from this band. So I'm going to give this album a score. I'm going to give it a solid 9 out of 10. So yep, that's my review of Terra Incognita, guys. Please thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the album, and as always, keep it metal. Merci beaucoup.